Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Secrets. I'm your host, Mohammed Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia, and the co-author of New Success Secrets, available on Amazon. On this episode, we have a special guest, Branden Lisi. Branden is the co-founder of Faith in Franchising. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Branden Lisi. Branden, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Branden, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to get into franchising?
So I've owned a marketing agency for a long time with my best friend. And one of the things that has always stuck with me, going back to when I was a high school kid and I had multiple jobs, is that it was so much more fun working in a place that made people happy. I worked in a drugstore and no one wanted to be there because people would come in there to get their medicines and they were, rarely in a good mood. And then in the evenings, I would go next door in the mall and I would work at a t-shirt shop where everybody that would come in was always happy because they were excited to be there. And so, that always stuck with me. And when my business partner and I were looking to diversify some of our investments, we wanted to we looked at franchising as a potential strategy. And we picked a franchise in a candy store because nobody goes into a candy store to be in a bad mood, right? And if you are in a bad mood, a candy store makes you be in a good mood.
Yeah.
So for us, it was, a desire to diversify income, on a business level. But it was also about getting something that would make people smile and make people happy. And so those were the decisions that we were making when we chose the franchise we did.
Mm. So in a candy store, they get a lot of sugar and then they smile.
Yeah. Well, there's toys and soda pop and candy and a lot of odds and ends and a lot of nostalgia. We're not just selling candy. We sell a lot of nostalgic or very exotic candy that's hard to get. And so it was really about getting an environment, that would allow people to discover things. I suppose just come in and buy a candy bar and leave. Our store is merchandised in a way, it's a Rocket Fizz, that's the name of the brand, but it's really merchandised in a way to let people connect with their past and their nostalgia, and they remember their grandparents and parents and whatnot. So it's a lot more than just selling candy in that particular thing. And that experience, kind of coupled with what I do on the business development side of my agency, led us to create the Faith in Franchising business, which is, more of what we're talking about today, because I realized how important it is to find, a lot of people make a decision to buy a franchise because of money. And we started on that process, right? We wanted to diversify our investments. But it's so critical to find a franchise brand where you're passionate about the product and passionate about the experience that you're delivering for your customers, and be aligned with making money. And I think a lot of people kind of jump in. The biggest mistake I see in franchising absolutely is people buy into a franchise when they really aren't that interested or passionate about it. They're just kind of looking at the bottom line numbers. And, in owning a business for almost 3 decades as I have, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and having a passion for something really helps you power through the bad times and the challenging times with any business.
Branden, while you were saying that passionate thing that's true almost in a job and also in a business and almost in any other industry, not only of franchising, because people are stuck where they got in a good mood and good time, and now when the things got tough in last 12 months.
Yep.
Yeah,
and our business has actually done really well because our store is an experience. Some retail that is just transaction oriented hasn't done as well. But because you really kind of have to come to our store to experience that sort of joy of discovery and that unique thing that we deliver, it's not something that can happen online, because you could go online and buy candy bars and soda pop and anything else.
Yeah.
To get the experience, you got to come into the store. And so I think that's one of the things that helped us, that and the team. The other aspect that kind of led to the Faith in Franchising was a realization that for many people, it's not just enough to buy into a business, whether you're joining a company as an employee or you're buying into a franchise system as an investor owner. There's still a culture element to that organization. Mm-hmm. And the Faith in Franchising concept as way it was developed as a way of connecting people of faith, regardless of that background of faith, with brands that value people of faith within their corporate culture. And here in Atlanta, probably the most relevant one or most obvious one is Chick-fil-A. But whether it's a home services franchise or a restaurant or whatever, when people buy into that brand, they are also buying into that culture, and they have to work and live and operate within that culture. And the second big mistake I see is people that get into a culture, whether it's a job or buying into a franchise, and they're not the fit. And so they always feel a little bit like an outsider as opposed to a member of the team. And I think that's really critical. And that's why we created the Faith in Franchising portal, was to help people that value faith connect and buy and invest in brands that value faith within their system. And it's been successful so far. We'll see.
Just curious for our audience, how many locations you got and how many people you helped to get into faith in franchising, like successfully?
Yeah, so the Faith in Franchising portal, on the locations front, our team has helped hundreds of people buy franchises through the years. Okay. So Faith in Franchising was actually a portal that was launched right after Labor Day of this last year. Oh. And so, we're still, the process of buying a franchise is usually, it can happen faster, but most of the people that find their way into this process take 6 months to a year sometimes to buy a franchise. So we're still working with the candidates to actually buy franchises. But that's just because it's a relatively new business.
Wonderful. So Branden, I'm sure you have 3 decades of experience and also in Atlanta. So I'm in Atlanta for 17 years myself. So what are the top 3 missteps to avoid when you're getting into franchising?
So the first is goes back to the point I made earlier about you have to be interested, kind of emotionally vested in, intellectually invested in, and believe in the product, as opposed to just simply looking at it as a sort of a ownership job role. You really do want to care about it. I think the second thing is people undercapitalize the business, both in terms of realizing how long it takes to build out a customer base. When we opened our Rocket Fizz store, we were rather fortunate because we solved the third issue in a minute. And I'll talk about that. But we were cash flow positive the day we started. Like, the doors opened up, people came in, and, we had cash and we could fund the business out of the cash, from the first month. But a lot of franchise businesses aren't that way. Takes a while to build up the clientele. So I think the second mistake people make is undercapitalizing their business. And I think the third mistake that they make, and this is not a mistake that's common necessarily just to franchising, I think it applies in corporate America. They don't really have a strategy and a process for evaluating and hiring people. That's a common weakness. You don't go to college and learn how to do that. And when you're trying to grow a business, if you're the first employee as the owner, that second employee is so critical, right? And you've got to get it right. And a lot of the franchisees that we've helped through the years have come back to us to get advice on our hiring methodology, because we've been very successful at hiring managers and staff members and whatnot. But that is the hardest part to get right. Yeah. I don't care, again, if you're in corporate America or you're doing your own business, whether it's a franchise or not, how to hire people and how to onboard them and get them involved in the culture, and then setting expectations, which kind of gets more beyond just 3 things, is such a critical part. And a lot of people don't get that right. And they can never kind of get the momentum going in the business because they don't have the right people. So I think those are the 3 things. And then I would actually add a 4th thing for the business, certain kinds of franchises, and that is making sure you have the right site location. If your business is like ours, very dependent upon foot traffic, you have to spend the money, maybe more than you think you should, but you're going to have to spend the money to get the retail space, if that's your world, or making sure that you have the right territory. If you're a home services brand and you're, where you're doing roofing or landscaping or pool maintenance or whatever, making sure there's enough people within that territory that you have to really be able to ensure that you're going to be successful over a long period of time. So I think that's a fourth little point that I would like to make beyond just passion, and the issues I discussed about getting people on board and having enough money.
Yeah,
and that site selection is kind of tied to the money, really. That second and that fourth thing are really tied together.
Yeah, it's just like in real estate, location. So
it is when it comes to retail in particular. There are some restaurants and whatnot that have off the beaten track kind of things. They're usually very expensive restaurants, and they're a little bit more of a destination. My particular business is not that. It's more just walk in and buy, and then you discover it and you go from there. So it's a little bit different. In the world of, the thing about the faith and franchising piece, kind of going back to that though, is part of the value that we bring to people that are looking is that experience of having worked across all these different franchise categories, really helping them understand not only are you the right culture fit, because that's why we've assembled, those dozens of brands that are in there that are already kind of checking that box of culture fit, but helping people go through the process of finding the right financial and operational fit based on their background and the lifestyle they want to lead.
Yeah, wonderful. That's amazing. Branden, you are not only running a good business, however, you're really helping people to connect to their passion and actually making a living with that one, basically,
Yes, sir.
Helping them to discover their passion. Is it aligned with the franchise they are looking into? Maybe you're redirecting them to the right one so that way they're on a successful path. That's a great work, Branden. Branden, so what are your top 3 success secrets? Don't be stingy. Give us your best ones.
I think the first one, and I'll go back to the point I made about 15 years ago. I took the time and I invested in some education around the hiring process. Mm-hmm. And I realized what I was doing was 180 degrees from where I should be going. Mm-hmm. And once I implemented this hiring process, and it kind of evolved out of the system called top grading, but it gave me a strategy for how to interview candidates and filter through candidates and really test people in an interview setting. And I didn't have those skill sets when I started off as an entrepreneur. And I have been very successful as a business owner, both in the core digital marketing agency, as well as in the franchising world or faith in franchising, in terms of getting really good people around me. And I think that's the first step that I would say is you're not unless you're looking to be a sole practitioner, which is, not the world I live in generally, you really have to rely on people. And so my first, piece of experience is you have to have a good methodology. There are a number of systems out there, but you have to find the right system that really gives you the ability to challenge people in an interview process and find out what their real skill sets and their real aptitudes are. And then the second secret of success is really focusing on sales. A lot of people focus on marketing and digital media and trying to drive traffic and whatnot. And if that's your business, that's your business. Spending a lot of time to make sure you have a compelling message that resonates with people that are going to give you money, right? So the best way to do that is to go talk to the customers or people that you think will be customers and ask them to give you honest feedback. Don't try to sell them anything. Just say, I would like to be able to sell you this. So would you listen to this pitch and be honest, brutally honest with me so that I can refine my message to make sure that I'm actually delivering value? Because if you're not delivering value, you're not going to really make it very far in the marketplace. And that value can be on a lot of different levels, right? It could be a better customer experience on the website. It could be better customer service. But the act of selling is going to be integral to every business that's out there, at least one that's successful. And you really have to put a lot of effort and energy on that actual transaction, how that happens, as opposed to worrying about all the marketing and everything else on the front end. At some point when that transaction happens, someone agrees to sign a contract or someone agrees to give you money. That's the moment where you kind of start with and work everything backwards from there. And then I think the third piece of advice that I would give people, and this seems to be maybe being an older person, I'm 55, I think be patient. get rich slow. There's nothing wrong with getting wealthy over time. The things that happen where people that go up the hockey stick and make a lot of money, they make a lot of compromises on the customer front. They make a lot of compromises sometimes on the employee front. And, if you can do it, that's wonderful. But don't be frustrated if your success doesn't happen overnight. The annals of business are filled with people who are 30-year overnight successes, right? Where it finally happens. And that goes back to what I was saying about, you got to care about the business. You got to be passionate, enthusiastic, and just keep working. Make sure you've got good people, lift them up, support them, focus on sales, and just continue to be patient and do the right things by your customers, and most importantly, by your employees and your team members. And eventually you will be successful if you figure those pieces out.
And never give and never give up,
Yeah, you've got to be persistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's the patience thing, right? Good way of adding patient and persistent.
Yeah.
But I think the persistence come from being passionate about it, right? Because one of the things that my grandfather told me this a long time ago, and it has always stuck with me, and I didn't understand it at the time. He said, if you can get up and go to hobby every day instead of getting up and going to work every day, your life is so much more meaningful and more enjoyable. And you don't think about the money you're making or losing as much as what it is that you're doing. Because if you get up and go to hobby, you'd be doing it even if you weren't getting paid. And I have been very fortunate to get up and go to hobby most of my life.
That's very good. Very good. Branden, it's a great wisdom. I'm so glad we outreach to you to get this wisdom out of you, basically. So thank you so much for sharing. And how the Growth Hacking Secrets community can support you.
I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
How we can support you.
I'm not 100% sure at this point in time. I need to figure. I'm working on some new issues. So I've got a new business that's still evolving with the faith and franchising. I have a more mature business with the candy store that we're looking at expanding. And then I have a core business, which is the digital marketing agency that's just been humming along. So right now, I kind of need to get into it a little bit more to understand some of the value propositions that you folks offer.
Wonderful. So
I need the book. I need a copy of the book.
Absolutely. So visit the faithinfranchising.com and get connected with our guest Branden Lisi with us. So Branden, we are about to wrap up. I like to ask this question to almost every guest as a kind of feedback, a quick review, a testimonial for the show. What would you say to your best friend about a Growth Hacking Secrets show when I'm not there?
I think it'll be a great experience. It's a great opportunity to tap into your experience and share it with other people. One of the things that's critical in life is being able to pay it forward and lift other people up and help them be successful. And this is a phenomenal opportunity to share what you know and learn and have experienced with other entrepreneurs that want to be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your kind words. Really appreciate it. What would you say as a final word?
My final word would be kind. It's 2 words, but be kind. We need a lot of kindness in the world these days. And so I always try to operate from that premise.
Absolutely. Be kind. With that one, thank you so much, Branden Lisi, for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of a Growth Hacking Secrets community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Mohammed Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Until the next episode, all good wishes.